And hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Enter the Matrix. Here we are joined by our regular co-host in the full squad, which actually doesn't happen that often.
Yeah.
But here we are, finally gathered in the same place. We will be talking about the upcoming ITT, also discussing our thoughts on the meta and how it is developing, because there's definitely some interesting opinions going around and interesting lists. And it's all a bit scuffed because everybody that is going to the WTC is keeping their secrets to themselves, which is interesting. I think ITT is going to be interesting because it's a peek into what England and their meta and some other people are thinking right now. So, how are we doing, gentlemen? Typhus, you are finally back. How have you been?
Great. I want to shout out first Ben, who hosted me when I was in Vegas 3 weeks ago and shown us around. Much love, dude. It was really nice to actually see Vegas guided by someone, because then it's less of a, well, how do we call it, kitschy height of capitalism that it can be. So yeah, that was lovely. Other than that, I didn't really have too much time for 40k with a lot of stuff happening around. So I'm kind of just chilling. And next week I'm going to Dallas for the invitational team event, which is, by the way, weird because it's 3 rounds essentially. So I'm gonna go to Vegas to play 3 games and then watch CSGO event.
Which sounds dope, CS2. To be honest.
CS2. Yeah, I know, like, some teams probably are figuring out team comms, and the Art of War chat there, because I'm going on Team Art of War, is like, when I drop the question whether we'll have backstage passes to see what's going on and watch the games, then the conversation dropped from what list should we bring to which matches of StarCraft and Counter-Strike we want to watch. I think this is the correct approach. So yeah.
Do you know if it's at the same venue that they just had the Dallas Open at? Because it's an esports
I think so, yeah.
arena.
Yeah, I think it is.
Josh just got back from there and he said it's probably one of the best 40k venues he's ever been to.
Yeah, that stream looked dope. The whole.
That's great that we're playing 4 teams of 8. Then we'll surely appreciate it.
I mean, it's just kind of it's a dope event on itself. It's kind of cool for me that they have, like, the DreamHack have invited 40k to be a part of it. I think it's a generally good thing for the hobby, especially for team events. Because
I will happily give a debrief after I get back.
Yeah, that sounds dope. Nathan, what is up in England's land?
Not a lot, really. Again, like we're discussing on this episode, just prepping for ITT. Then my calendar's kind of free. So I'm deciding what events I want to go to. I am looking at more like international type events, but it kind of seems to be post WTC. There's not, like, this is kind of the team's window, isn't it? It's kind of like early spring till running up to the WTC. There's less, like that September, October, there's less events going around for, like,
there's Champions Cup.
When's that?
Champions Cup in the US.
Oh, in the US, yeah.
Imagine caring about the US events. Come on.
No. Not because I don't care about them, because it's just like that's a long way to go.
Yep. And so how we are going. Still cannot believe that we are, but sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I myself have been meta hopping like fucking crazy, playing every army I can in my local RTTs and on TTS and stuff. And I've got to, because I think right now my main job is to actually learn about armies that I don't necessarily understand, which I've been focusing on mainly. Things like the Vanguard Ultramarines list that I've played in the recent RTT, which I don't think has been popular at all in Europe, but has seen some real play in the Americas as a whole. Did some games with Grey Knights as well, some T-Suns, of course. I think I've started to realize how much work this WTC is gonna be throughout the next fucking months, because I'm already spending like fucking 3 or 4 hours a day looking at tables and matchups and discords and stuff. It's very scary, but yeah.
And then, as every WTC, it must happen that, like, the week of deadlines, we'll get groundbreaking changes, and everything will go tits up.
Can you smell the smell? It's so quiet right now. The recent patch has been so light. It's so quiet that I'm like, shit's gonna go down. There's never in the WTC with a stable, honest meta. It has never happened. And
There were two. Since I played, there were two.
I have not played for that long, sir. I don't believe that's an option.
So
I'm fully expecting everything to, like, all my
2012
go out of the window, and for me to, and for all the teams to have to start over again.
Just pointing to Nathan, 2012 was the most stable it could be because it was a month into new edition, but you still played previous.
Yes.
And,
yeah. Sixth had come out. Loads of people were butthurt that we weren't playing sixth. So we then played fifth. So it was the very, very end of fifth, which then meant that
and it was like everything settled. Everything sorted.
Yes. Yeah, it was literally every team and back then it was like, obviously there was no detachments or anything else. You had 2 HQ, 6 troops, 3 elites, 3 fast attack, 3 heavy support. That's your army. No allies, nothing. So it was, we know teams are going to take 5 armies, guaranteed, than the other 3. But obviously then your pairings was different because you put one forward and then your opponent put something against it. That was it. There was no pick 2, whatever. So yeah, it was literally, we know they're going to take 8 of 10 armies. That's it. And those armies are pretty much the same.
And there were like 14 armies in the game back then.
Yes.
So, there wasn't much.
So the game is super predictable, England does okay. Because that's the same story for 2019.
Holy.
Yeah.
I don't know if I love that or absolutely detest that. Because as much as
England performing well. Don't worry, we don't have to get used to that. We're safe.
Hopefully. Man.
Wow. Trash talk.
They didn't pick Nathan, come on.
Oh, no.
What are they doing?
Dropping the ball.
Nah.
Yeah. Taking some Chris Skinners and shit when you could get Nate. Anyway.
They've got a very solid team this year. They'll do well.
Yeah, 5th spot. Solid. Anyway. You were saying Pumba, and I got into shit-talking mood again.
I think with that, we are ready to go into the actual topic. Is by discussing what's up, what is happening in the ITT meta and England meta, England 5-man team meta, which I believe it is worth mentioning as a before we discuss the actual list, and in terms of WTC prep, that 5-man teams are so out of proportion with like 8-mans, and what you actually might pick for your team comp changes drastically between those two formats.
Yeah.
So by no means, I believe, is like a good indicator of what teams are going to bring. I mean, we are still like 3 months out of the event, but still, I think it's going to be some interesting observations.
So I don't think we have the summary of what the teams are bringing, but we have specific teams to talk about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe let's jump straight into it. If I manage to do... No, fuck that.
Because there's like 70 teams or something. 70 teams of 5, something like that.
Yeah. So
insane.
Unless I'm just trying to win with my PC, because as a professional, obviously I'm struggling to do window ITT. Yes. Can I share it? Cool. How now I make it so everyone can see it?
Man, you definitely are. Do you have a PhD?
Yes! I think we've got
You
it.
really should, because holy fuck, man.
Or you know what? I actually fixed it on my end, but now when I'm sharing, it doesn't work. Yes, we're getting the scuff part. It's so good. Oh, yes, we got it. Yes, boys, we got it. So let's
Holy
talk
shit, we
about the
did it.
team. Yes, I work in
starting
IT.
with one of the contenders. As a one of disclaimers, we will not be talking about Team England because Nathan is in Team England and he doesn't want to share all his secrets.
I'll go through our list, so as in like I can go through what we're taking, but yeah, obviously I'm not going to comment on why we've taken certain things.
That is absolutely fair, sir.
So now the Ignite team, I think they have some choices that I wouldn't take in fives. And
Typhus, tell us what are they actually bringing to the table.
So they have Sisters, Cow, Guard, Thousand Sons, and Grey Knights. And if you want to get into like nitty gritty, I think let's just mention factions first, and then if we're gonna talk about lists, let's just dive into a specific list. So what stands out to me are two factions that I'm not sure make it in fives nowadays. And those are Sisters and Guard. And let me get more into Sisters part because I think I'm kind of qualified to talk about it. I know Boris is kind of one-trick pony at this point with Sisters, so that makes sense that he's bringing them. But I find fives are quite volatile for Sisters, especially in metas that there's Necrons, there's like the Mech Grey Knight builds, there's Iron Storms, and I think specifically on UKTC tables, those matchups that you were more fine into like shooty armies are also a little bit worse, I find. Or at least I would presume so. Especially like say Iron Storm. I find Iron Storm was manageable on Alpine boards. I think it would be way worse for Sisters on UKTC boards.
Agreed.
And then suddenly you end up with having, for example, two matchups that you just straight up cannot play. Say Grey Knights and Necrons. That you, if the opponent actually has some brain cells, you should lose that. And you kind of cannot wiggle yourself out of it with Sisters. And armies that you are good into, I find bringing an army based around Val is counterproductive. So Val is good into matchups you're bad into, or you should be losing slightly, or losing badly, but then you're still losing that matchup. And she's very bad into matchups that you could prey on, like Thousand Swords or Eldar. Or into Mirror. I find she's quite bad in the Mirror as well. So that's where I find that Sisters, I don't think they have a fit in fives. I just don't think so. Maybe into some of those teams, they would be decent, but I just think they are not the way to go right now in fives. In eights, it's a different topic because suddenly out of 5 armies, there's not 3 prey armies. There's 3 prey armies out of 8. So it's a completely different discussion. But in fives, it can be quite volatile for Sisters. So there's that.
I think I generally agree. Yeah. What's interesting to me, I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the Valgan package, while it possibly weakens some of the better matchups, I think it also makes you definitely more playable into things that should absolutely kick your ass, right? Say Meganopes, say the Wraiths package, stuff like that, right?
Yeah, but it is also very dependent on how much your opponent gives you. I find that's what I found when playing Valgans. I played like nearly 50 games with them, and I found that if my opponent allowed me to, I could really punish them with Valgons. And I find this is a very interesting point that you have Boris playing Valgons, where Vic was online telling people that Valgons are shit because he cannot play them and he's just maybe bad at the army. Shots fired. And
Do not
still
condone the
Boris.
opinions of this podcast.
So yeah, no, I think it helps if you're building sisters more as an all-rounder. It's fine. I just think you will have bad matchups. So you're taking this army in a 5 to probably eat shit and lose a game then, instead of bringing a score.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I see it.
Or to blunt something, right? But I definitely agree that blunting doesn't work as well as in 5s as in 8s.
Yeah. What do you think about guard though?
So I love this guard list, legitimately, because after all that has been said about the guard getting a lot of nerfs and like losing 150 or something points from their list, and how they can maybe transition into something different, it's the exact same list, but just
But
a
only
little bit
3 bull grid.
Yeah, just a little bit less of it. But otherwise, it's the
So
same
maybe
list, basically.
for the listeners later, I will just say quickly what Boris had in Sisters. He had package of Val, Celestine, Catherine, 10 Sisters, 2 Rhinos, 3 times 10 Arcos, 2 Castigators with Battle Cannon, 2-man Crusader Squad, 3 Paragons, Penitent, 10 Repentia, 2 times 5 Seraphim, and 5 Zephyrim. So, standard Sisters. But Dave actually looked at what was played in guard and just said, fuck it, I'm bringing the same shit. Just no Bulgarian.
Yep, after David has ranted significantly about the guard changes, he just brought the same list, but with a slightly less stuff in it, which is fucking chef's kiss. I love it. Just bring the same
this is
stuff.
the point. But I mean, it's not really the same. We're talking about list with 3 Leman Rasses, 2 Basilisks, 2 Manticores, 30 Kaskin, 3 Bulgarian, and then basically no Sentinels.
Mm-hmm.
That's what true. I see.
Yep.
So
yeah,
this is interesting choice, and I'm curious whether this is something tailored specifically into, like, say, Iron Storm, or say, in that case, Grey Knights that you want to punish with this army, because I found that this could be applied to countering those matchups. I'm just not like. Guard was good at Alpine, right? And it was nearly uncounterable. Like, even if you had an army that could counter it, things could just go awry and you would lose it. But I think with way less pressure, without Bulgarian, this army will just play differently. And it's way more of a monophase army nowadays.
Yeah, the mid-table aspect of the army is kind of gone now. Because whereas you had your indirect pieces before, quite 12, maybe 15 Bulgarian, plus the 30 Kazakin, you now have, in this case, looking at this list, it's got more shooting, which is, we should say that we are playing on UK GT terrain, which is usually pretty good fire lanes. Objectives are usually relatively open field. So the Leman Russes are better on these tables. But the mid-board, if you can deal with the Kazakin, there's not really a lot there. That's not to say that this type of guard list still doesn't definitely work. 4 indirect pieces that still do a lot of damage these days. Still very scary in certain pairings. I think it is designed a little bit. We'll talk about Tau later, but I think if somebody puts Ironstorm forward, put Tau and guard against it. So, yeah, I can see what they're trying to do with it. I'd imagine David maybe didn't have a better option to jump onto. So he's kind of been happy to take this. And I still think it works quite well as a list.
I mean, he also played Necrons, but he chose to play Guard instead of Necrons. And I'm curious whether he thought that the meta has figured out and counter Necrons, or Necrons maybe don't play as well on UKTC. But I think saying that statement with looking also at Josh's scores is just a travesty. Like, and I'm not sure whether
it might be legitimately just a comfortable choice instead of.
I think it's a good choice. Yeah.
I think it's a comfortable choice that he has just a lot of practice with. So picking that instead of going to Necrons, which, to be fucking honest, playing Canopted Court is kind of miserable. So would you rather go to a tournament with your mates playing a list that you have billion preps on, or switching to Canopted Court and having a miserable time? I think that's the choice he was faced with.
I might be doing that, right?
I know, but you're Typhus, and you always eat shit in team cups, so what the fuck are you doing? Is that a question? You don't have a choice. You do that every time.
That was the saddest rant I ever heard.
It's like, I'm sorry, but it's just the reality of it.
So, Nathan, what do you think about those Grey Knight and Thousand Sons lists?
So the Grey Knight list has a very particular purpose. It is designed to beat Canoptic Court.
Yeah.
Like, that's outside of things like Wraiths. Helverins, while are very good, adds to the tank element of the army, adds to the stat check version, like his 9 vehicles that are relatively tough to deal with, and they have the ability to walk onto an objective and go 8 OC. That's really handy a lot of the time. Damage output, they're a bit swingy. The anti-fly 2+ is great, but with only AP 1, they sometimes. So, like, you can maybe see, okay, do they help with things like Magnus? Well, if he's got cover, not really. Still on 2-up save. Can blank 1 potentially. So this is predominantly more for... With the Thousand Sons of the Grey Knights, they're trying to pin Necrons into not having a great matchup. But I would argue then that the Tau, Thousand Sons of Grey Knights are pretty good into Necrons, but then the Sisters and the Guard are not so great into Necrons. Because if anything, the Guard now with only 3 Bulgrin, it was the things like the 12 Bulgrin that were actually locking the Wraiths down for a little bit to try and keep the Guard in the game. The Lehman Russes are less... They're scary damage output, but they're not... The mid-board is gone a lot more now. Yep. So I'd feel Necrons would win the Astra Militarum game now. So it's kind of a weird thing. They've got 3 armies that are good into Necrons, and then they've got 2 that aren't. So they haven't 4-1'd it, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But that Grey Knight list, super solid, very good at scoring, bounces all over the place. It's 6 Dread Knights. It's good.
Yeah, I have played something very similar. But it had 5 Nemesis Dread Knights and 2 Redeemers with 3 Helverins, and basically nothing else almost in the list. Yeah. I was legitimately, because I didn't play Necrons, I was legitimately very underwhelmed with the Helverins. I think, except for that specific matchup, they don't do anything that the army doesn't already achieve.
Because I find maybe in the meta with more Tau, actually, the anti-fly will also come in play.
I thought about it a lot, actually, but you would be surprised how unreliable even they are into.
I ran the maps in my brain just a moment ago. So
it's the AP1 that lets them down so
exactly
much, with no ignore cover or anything.
You don't have any help in hitting well. Then you wouldn't choose. You drop 1.
Yeah, 3 Helverins on average maybe kill 1 Devilfish equivalent chassis.
Yeah, so 1 CP roll, you don't kill a tank. It's great.
Yeah, exactly. So I was very underwhelmed in general by them. They are very good against, I don't know, killing sisters.
Okay, now
I was very surprised how much damage they do into things like Arcos. But that army does not struggle with things like Arcos.
Yeah, and that's the point where I'm curious why this approach instead of taking, say, 2 Redeemers for those Helverins and 5-man squad.
So the only thing with the Redeemers are they are weaker on UK GT terrain.
Okay.
Their movement path is there is the ability to see quite a lot, but in that also being the case, if you have to put them in certain locations, that mean usually you have to frontline them in a lot of games. Or they take way too long to get places because of the terrain setup. The Redeemers are weaker on this terrain.
That's fair. That's
Like
interesting
Manny-
to hear, especially that the list like the 3 Redeemers is kind of originated with Vic and Manny, right?
Yeah, like Manny took it to a UK GT event and he was like, I'm pretty much every game having to reserve one and put the other two on the front line. And it's like, if you play something that can actually do something to them that goes first, it just feels bad.
Yeah.
So
That
I
makes
get it.
perfect sense.
Yeah.
And Tau as a faction. You mentioned this is like built to counter Iron Storm and Cord.
Possibly.
I don't know enough about this game yet,
Okay.
but Brian obviously is a phenomenal player. Everything being able to advance and shoot now.
Yeah, it's Montka, of course. I mean, of
Yeah.
course. It's Montka.
So, yeah.
Of course, I think it's a big statement to make about Tau detachment right now.
So it's kind of one of those, you can get quite a lot of units into, say, that 12-inch lone op of a Canoptic army. It's one of those, it's a shoot-off. Iron accelerators and iron cannons, both being strength 9, I believe, does make it a bit dicey
right?
against.
They are 8.
Yeah, so it's 5s against tanks, but it's high AP, high damage. So
with potential lethals from Montka.
Yes, and potential dev from Riptides as well.
Mhm.
Which are flat 4 damage. You might just win a vehicle off. But yeah, it's obviously very good. Breaches are still very good. Fireblades. It's all very good. I think it's quite good into orcs as well.
I would expect so, yes.
Because
I'm very interested in the amount of hammerheads, especially, right? These are 3 hammerheads, 2 devilfish with 3 riptides. That is a lot of footprint. Footprint of the army is going to be absolutely massive. I'm gonna struggle to see a deployment, even like on UKTC especially, where this can hide. So it needs to go into a matchup where it outshoots every single time, even if it doesn't start. Like, I would be legitimately a little scared to face something like an Iron Storm, because then I think it is risking to be just a flip.
It is a bit dicey. But I think because you have the range, Iron Storm does become a little bit... It has certain tanks which are more anti-tank orientated. So if you get to kill those first, then it's kind of an uphill for the Iron Storm. If that makes sense.
I think it's an absolutely it's dicey, is what I'm saying. I can see it. I have not seen it tested, especially like the 3 Hammerheads version. So I don't have specifics on the matchup for sure, but I'm wondering if this can work anything else besides UKTC, though. I am not sure. Like,
I'd need to see it.
The fishes are legitimately huge models.
The hammerheads seem like something that works way better from reserves on UKTC than on WTC. Like, I don't think this list translates to WTC nearly at all.
See, David is here. Hello, David. And he's saying he just wanted to have fun. As I've said, I've read him like a book. Nobody wants to play fucking Kurt. Bro, what are we talking about? Just bring the fucking same guard list. It's all fine. Just anything to not play Call of the Kurt. I respect that. And then the T-Suns list is the most basic T-Suns list, I believe.
It's 1,000 Suns,
It's basic T-Suns with no additional flair. It's very solid. It's very good, especially now, I think.
I mean, every T-Suns list is 1,700 points of the same shit and 300 points of whether I choose this chaff or other chaff.
I think there's actually going, especially recently, there has been some developments in the T-Suns builds. Things like the TJ Lanigan list from last weekend that I saw. He was running a Winged Demon Prince. He was running Mutated Vortex Beast. He has been running like a squad of 10 and then just 5 rubrics, so 15 total. 3 Exalted Sources on disc. There's development. Things are happening in the T-Suns department. I don't think we are comfortably in a place where T-Suns cannot develop anything else that just wins events, because TJ clearly did that. So I think there's options. That army is extremely solid. And so long as you don't forget to bring some of the pieces, like Magnus, like Ariman possibly, and like at least 2 squads of cultists to block your opponents off.
Yeah, well, don't forget the Australian versions either.
I will forget the Australian versions. Fuck them.
Fair.
I will not accept Scholar Terminators in your seasons lists. I will be refusing that, sir. Ugh.
Yeah, and now the question, because David is in the chat and said that he practiced Necron's Green Tide, 18 knobs, T-Sons, and that there is a meta within meta for those events, and I think this is absolutely correct. Like when you are going with a top team, like we were going for Alpine, I think our team was considering what the English team would bring, and you guys were considering what we would bring, knowing the names, right? Like you were building your team comp slightly knowing what the other team would bring based on the names. And that's just something that happens. And
100%.
Dave mentioned that he didn't think about bringing Green Tide or Cord because they were easy to counter. And I'm kind of curious about this whole point because I think nowadays you could way more easily counter Cord if you really build your team around it. I'm not sure whether that would be vulnerable then for your other matchups. That maybe you had to build a team comp that would suffer into some other top meta picks. I haven't looked into it. But is Green Tide bad into such team comp? Or the Bully Boys? Because I find this is like a huge talking point. Where's the spot for orcs nowadays? Because people hear Mega Nobs and they get scared shitless, but they are just okay. I don't know.
Where I think orcs are right now is, so we'll go, quite a few lists we'll go through. Bully Boys have been by far the more common. And say in the Dallas Open final, it was Nids versus Bully Boys. I think that's that's partially a terrain choice. But for me personally, and I think for the WTC, you'll probably see a lot more Green Tide because I think they're way better on the WTC terrain. The ability, when you have an 8, there'll be certain games where you just go, you're not moving out your deployment zone.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
So
I think
his
orcs
60, 70.
in general are so much better in 8s than in 5s.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
I think both of these builds have very definitive counters to them. All of the orc builds. There are some matchups that they will absolutely destroy, smash, wreck, like not even a game. And there are matchups where they will struggle to score a point. All of the variations have them. They are definitely not uncounterable, and some of the top armies right now are very good into them. So picking orcs for 5-man teams, I actually believe is a difficult task. They will need protection in pairings, is my take on that. I don't think they are a build that can just hang and be fine into most.
But they are still better than Sisters in 5s.
I think so. However, Sister still, I think, have a higher floor of a score against some of the matchups.
Fair.
It's that argument of... Sorry, Caroline.
Yeah, my point, like reiterating my point, I think there are matchups where you don't protect orcs, they get thrown into something and they score a 0 and it's almost not a game. And all of the variants, I think, have something like that in the beta currently. I don't think Sisters are nearly as volatile.
Yeah, with the Cord slight nerfs, I think it's now comfortable 5 points into Cord.
Maybe more with Vol, to be honest.
No, it doesn't change that matchup that much. Really.
You were saying, Nathan?
Yeah, it's basically a bit like what you said. I think the orcs, say the orcs in a matrix might give you 2 big wins, 2 games, and a spanking, whereas Sisters might give you 4 maybe losing side draws, and then maybe a small win. So it's kind of where you want your team composition sometimes. like you say, the Sisters just lost volatile, but the Orcs give you wins, which in 5, when you're trying to win every round, if you can get them pairings right for them, it's better.
Yeah, 100%. I think they are definitely a choice. I think you must be very aware when bringing them that even though they are a great army, they have very deliberate counters. So you need to be prepared for answering that with the rest of your team composition.
Yeah, which is strange because I actually felt like the Green Tide had less counters to it in some ways because it is big units, especially the ones with Feel No Pain, T5, 5 up, 5 up, and they're OC2 and they're bouncing around and whatnot. It is difficult. Some armies just don't have anti-infantry, and whatever anti-infantry they have is usually lower strength. So yeah, it's tricky sometimes.
Absolutely, but I think there are answers to it, and I think in some of the other teams we'll see them very clearly.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Shall we move on?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
To answer one question in chat right now, because it is a question that we have discussed throughout this show with previous episodes, but I think it's a very honest question, and we would like to answer it. How does protection from pairings work?
I have dog, by the way.
Typhus have dog. My cat has been running around fucking senseless.
He's pure darkness, by the way. There's no light.
I cannot see a dog, by the way, just so you know. I only see a black hole in your apartment. How does protection from pairings work? Do you get some agency in who you play in teams? Yes. So there's a lot of resources you can find in how Teams 40K work. The gist of it that I'm gonna just summarize right now is that every team has agency. They have defender roles where you put down one army and then you are attacked with 2 other armies and you choose your matchups. So those 2 people play against each other and this repeats. So basically you can decide in a way who plays against what. It is not random as in like singles. And
I just posted in that chat a link to the article I've written about it.
Exactly. So you are welcome to indulge in that and learn more about team formats. Moving on to War Masters A team.
Nathan, why don't you kick us off?
So I'll kick off with the ringleader of this team, Mr. Nassim, who we all love to hate. With basically Tau does seem to be along the same premise of all the other Taus. Well, the 2 Tau armies we've seen today. Slight differences. Rather than 3 hammerheads with iron cannons, he's got 2 hammerheads with railguns. Railguns, high damage potential, low chance of success sometimes. Other than that, pretty much the same. He's got the extra breacher squad, I guess, over the hammerhead. He's got an extra battlesuit squad. He doesn't have the what's it called? The other suit.
Ghost Guild.
Ghost Guild, thank you. But he's got a piranha in there as well. I think Tau definitely got a little bit hurt by losing the Forge World unit. But yeah, again, this kind of list, I'm interested to see how they use it. I don't know if this is
Cowian though. So it's basically it's Cowian, so it's index detachment instead of like Montka, which Brian's bringing, which is the most surprising thing for me. That of all the people on planet Earth, Nassim is bringing fucking Cowian instead of Montka. The person who is responsible for tabling people in 40 minutes with the last Tau Codex in every event he has ever went to, bringing the slow detachment instead of the fast one. It's bewildering.
Or it's a mistake and he's done it wrong.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah. Or he's accidentally taken the wrong detachment when he did it.
The list is called Inshallah Cowian. I think he's aware. I think it's a specific. It's in the name of the list. I think he is aware that he's bringing Cowian.
I was trying to defend you, Naz. Yeah, I'm interested to see how teams use Tau, especially because it's 2 top teams now who've taken Tau. I don't know if it's also a little bit, obviously now it's being part of Team England, might also be a case of they are testing without. I think if you take a Tau list like that, it doesn't necessarily tip your hand about what England is looking at. It is somebody is taking Tau to test to see if they work. But also, it's UK GT terrain, it's different terrain. Take from that what you will. So
yes, it's definitely different than WTC.
Yeah.
It must be said. But those lists have mostly the similar datasheet still.
Yep.
And I'm wondering how their playstars are going to differ, because the suites of stratagems, enhancements, and stuff definitely is completely different. Like, legitimately, Kavian stratagems, I believe, are far worse than Montgas stratagems. They have one of the most insane, I believe, suits of stratagems you can use. Some of the enhancements are bonkers good. So I think this must play at least somewhat differently. It must be slower, at least. They're like, the army doesn't advance and shoot at all times, which already makes it far, like, I think it's more shooty, especially after the third turn, but it's slower. It is much slower.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
What else?
And to touch, I would add one thing to the topic of hiding lists. I don't think in fives nowadays there's even space to show off your unique ideas for WTC 8 months.
No.
Because of how different fives and eights are. You are kind of forced into taking certain meta factions nowadays, I would say. And you are very limited by the fact that you need to expect Court, Grey Knights, and some sort of aggressive Marines and Tau in those factions. So it dictates what you take as a team quite heavily.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you were saying, Pumba.
Yeah, moving on to the Blood Angels. Picking the correct Marines, which are Sons of Sanguinius, with 2 captains, captain with a jump pack with the icon of the angel, a normal chaplain, a chaplain with a jump pack, 2 assault intercessors, and intercessor squads who will be going into the impulsors with the captains, which is a standard package, and Rhino for the Death Company Marines with the chaplain. Very standard. 3 assault intercessors with jump packs, one of the best units in the fucking entire game. I love it so much, especially in Suns. It's just bonkers good right now. What is interesting in that list is obviously the 10 Sanguinary Guard, joined by a chaplain with jump pack. No, there's no Lemartis in that list. Holy shit, I just realized. That is crazy. So probably the captain with the jump pack is joining the Sanguinary Guard, and the chaplain with the jump pack is joining the Death Company with jump packs instead of Lamartis, which is a choice. It's way more damage, but it's also so much easier to kill. Like, there is no comparison. Lamartis is just a beast in general because of the tankiness it provides to the squad. I am not sure. I still like the Sanguinary Guard. They are still expensive as all hell. They are still 31 points per model, so that squad without the captain costs you 310 points, which makes me cry
Still
into my
pricey.
pillow every night. And their damage isn't fantastic, but they are very, very good into other melee factions. I think that particular Blood Angels list with no shooting is positioned well into some of the meta matchups, though. I think this is one of the lists that basically takes orcs and like brings them behind the shed and shoots them in the head, and they have nothing. Like, that matchup must be brutal. That list just fucks orcs so much, and I think no matter what variant are you bringing, legitimately, if you are looking to counter orcs right now, I would say this is the peak. I cannot see how this matchup goes anything else but 15 plus for Blood Angels. Then we have Sisters. Typhus, anything interesting in the Sisters list?
I mean, this is quite standard approach, but that's the point where I'm surprised. Maybe surprised is quite bad to say. Like, there's Demonifuge, so the duo, Missionary, Morven, Triumph, 1 squad of Sisters, Immolator, Rhino, 3 Arcos, 3 Castigators with battle cannons, Paragons, 2 Penitents, and 2 Squads of Seraphim. So I think people are catching up to Penitents, which are very good, I think, for their point cuts. They are just extremely efficient, as nearly everything in this book. But I think the main difference compared to WTC is the fact that there is 3 Castigators, and Vic was quite talkative about how they actually work way better on UKTC boards because how they can draw a line of sights, and long range shooting is absolutely prime in UKTC. But I think this is quite standard list. I'm curious how much of a choice of Demonifuge is actually because of the UKTC boards and the fact that maybe the terrain will mean that you do not have a way of safely holding an objective. And
They
then
have
if
low
you are
knob?
actually...
Right.
Yeah, they are low knob and deep strike. So you
Mhm.
can use that to ingress onto an objective and stuff like that. They are a really good package for 70 points if they didn't give out 8 assassinate.
They're 70 points.
Yes.
Or a low 2 characters with invulns and low knob and probably some sort of
Fight
combat.
first, 3 heroic, precision, like 8 attacks in melee and smite. So it's
That
like
is
insane
actually
package.
crazy. Like it's an insane. Like this package is fucking nuts for 70 points. Can we just say?
Yes.
Can we agree on that? Okay.
It's a
8
low
wounds,
knob
I'm
with
sorry.
resurrection.
Like the Stern is 5 wounds as a sister's
Yes.
character. Okay. With a 4-up invo. Okay, bro. And then the Simp has a 3 wounds 4-up invo as well.
Yep. It's a really good package. I just
fine.
think it... So I think it shows how fucking deep the Sisters Index is. That I find this unit doesn't feel a role that you actually need within this faction, and it gives out 8 assassinate.
I don't know, man. I'm looking at this data sheet right now, and it's fucking cracked. 0 CP heroic on the fights first characters with low knob, deep strike. Holy fuck. It's nutty. I think I like it. If you agree, like if you come to a conclusion that assassinate and giving up assassination and bringing it down isn't real, and I'm close to that statement right now, because all of the lists I have written in the last weeks have just given up billion points and nobody even cares because half of the armies that are playing right now will just go tactical because they need CPs and stuff. You can just say, I mean, it's a fucking nut package. I don't care about assassination. If you'd bring it, I'm fine with it either way. And you don't get the extra CPs that you might need. So, hey, I like it.
Yeah. You will not get surprises in Sisters list. Maybe how many Paragon squads are there. But I think this is because of the meta and how the meta is shifting towards pairings that you actually value the team quite a lot. So that makes sense.
Jack's also a very, very good player. He is.
Yeah.
He's been doing very well on the UK scene. And yeah, this is kind of more it looks a little bit more UKGT because 3 Castigators and the war suits, you just need a bit of shooting. A lot more shooting. You can't play the MSU scoring game as easily on this terrain. Again, with the low knobs help with that as well. Yeah.
Then we have Grey Knights, which are very, very standard, I think, with 5 Dread Knights, so 2 Grandmasters, 3 Nemesis, 2 Redeemers, and 5 strikes to stick your objectives, and the Crow plus 10 Purifiers package,
which by the way is insane when you look at how few units to score this list has.
It doesn't matter. I have played something very similar. Legitimately, I had 0 infantry pieces, and it's still fine. It's cracked. This list is still amazing. It doesn't have any Tech Marines, which I would kind of like to see in such a package. I think especially the Grey Knights Tech Marines with... Okay, can we talk about this, by the way? Why the fuck is the Grey Knight Tech Marines ability completely different to the Space Marine one? What the fuck happened there? What the hell? So if anybody doesn't realize, the Space Marine Tech Marine has the one ability to heal a vehicle within 3 and then give it +1 to hit. It's a single ability and can be used only once on each of your vehicles, so you cannot double down on it. So the Grey Knight's Tech Marine has 2 separate abilities. He gives +1 to hit within 6 inches, and then heals with a different ability within 3 inches, and it can't be stacked because there's nothing that forbids you to do that. What? They are the same fucking thing. What
No, they are psychers, lore-wise.
Fuck off! I don't care. They are always the same.
It's not even their best ability. Their best ability is at the WTC, when you can join the Tech Marine to 4 multi-melta servitors, multi-melta servitors, and then his servitors can be joined by other servitors.
Yes.
Because that's a thing, apparently.
Yes.
But yeah, it was great fun. When I played the French guy at Alpine, and he shot, I don't know why he carried on shooting it, but he shot his whole army into a smoked and AOC'd Land Raider and did 6 wounds to it, and I was like, cool. Heal D3, heal D3. I've got all my wounds back. Cool. Nice one, bro. He was like,
this is
probably should have stopped shooting that.
Especially the reason why I love the Grenade Tech Marines in such list, because you can make a Nemesis Grenade hit on 2s, which is amazing, then heal your Land Raider with a different ability, which is amazing, that you can double heal that. It's a whole thing. So they are amazing in that. So that's just,
and they also get blown up within 3 of a vehicle, right?
Course.
Something like that.
Yeah. Which is,
I mean, of course, whereas they couldn't. I guess they could not get that because they should. Yes, they do. Same as the Space Marines one. Overall, great list. Very stat checky still. I actually love it in 5s. I think it has very definite answers, but it needs to be very specific answers.
And then we have Green Tide.
Yup. Which has 100 boys, a battle wagon, some storm boys, some storm war bikes to the missions, some grets, of course, commandos to out infiltrate your opponents. Then we have 2 weird boys. The overall character package, I think, is the most important part of what you are doing with your Green Tide build. So it's 3 pain boys, 2 war bosses, and 2 weird boys. Very solid. No complaints.
So there's the argument of, do you take 6 units with 6 characters, 9 characters, or do you drop 1 20-man unit to put in more scoring aspects, like the Storm Boys, the War Bikes, a Gretchen unit, that kind of stuff. So there's a little bit of play there, but the list kind of writes itself. Just take as many boys as you can.
It's, as we've discussed, it's extremely solid. If it comes up against something like the Blood Angels list, it can cry in a corner. If it comes up against something that is not
Eldar,
for example, Eldar, good example, a list that cannot deal with such amount of bodies with good toughness, invents, rerolling ones to save, the final pains, and the teleportations, and shit like that, it will just run through it, no problems.
Getting +5 to charge.
Casually, yeah.
Yeah, as you do.
Overall, I like this lineup a lot. I think it covers a lot of things, and it's very... You need to be teched towards some of those picks to counter them specifically. If you don't have answers to orcs, you are getting absolutely destroyed. If you don't have answers to knights, you're getting absolutely destroyed. Then you have sisters to hold the line, Tau to do some bullshit, I assume, and shoot people to death, possibly into the shitty matchups to counter them, and then Blood Angels, who are extremely solid against most of the field, and then have some incredible matchups into things like Orc.
I'm very curious how often sisters will first defend in those team builds. I find that it might be surprisingly often.
It's the best way to avoid your worst matchup. So if you put sisters forward, you probably won't have to play Necrons. So that's kind of cool. It's whether they have 2 big, like a Grey Knights and a Necrons, then it becomes a little bit more tough.
Yep. Then it's a problem. But overall,
I should also say there is a light table for this round. So in a 5-man where potentially having that win to the roll off to pick the first table, to pick the only light table, you might not want to put sisters forward because you might have to want to put your Tau on the light table or X, Y,
So
Z.
this roll off is before or after you put your first defender? Because it changes.
Don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember which way around he's doing this one.
That's fair.
I think
Right.
it's before.
Let's move on to another team that you have chosen.
The Mega Nob meta. Oh yeah, David just mentioned that it is after the defenders. So this is absolute shit show. I think this is a problem. Same problem we had at Alpine, right? That suddenly having the first choice of the board can impact so much.
Yeah.
One question
it's one of the
about
reasons, like, there's been talks about changing the WCC layouts and making them a little bit more diverse and stuff, and this is one of the reasons that I'm not fully for that particular reason, right?
Now let's go back to the times where you had shooty gun lines first defender and you couldn't do anything about it. I just think all the Tau players.
I hate the situation.
It was
where
great.
There's like
it
one
super
very light
fun
table, and then you fucking first defender win the first defender roll off, and you just take the table or anything like this. I just despise that. That the roll off for the table choice should not dictate as much and give you so much agency. I am not a fan of that.
Yeah, when you have 8 tables, it should be reasonable that there's probably 2 lighter tables, 4 medium tables, 8, and the 2 light tables should be the same. The 2 heavy tables should be the same. You can mix up the mediums. I know you've got the weird table, but yeah. So Mega Nob meta. So this is the team I wanted to be on. These are my nice friends, my 4-1 friends, who we can go have a beer, do well, and then not actually have to care about winning. So Necrons, this is now, I can't even remember. It's not one of the first 2. It's the other one. What's the warrior one called?
The Awakened Dynasty?
That's the one.
The Index one.
Yes, so it's that one. So we've got Seraz, however you pronounce it.
Sheraz.
Sure. It's probably actually closer to your language than mine.
Yep.
It is. It really is. It sounds like, a meal that
it's basically a Polish name almost.
Yeah, if it's got a Z in it, I'll leave it to you guys. A Lokos Lord with Veil of Darkness, Orokin, Plasmancer, Scorpec Lord with Dermal Bond, a Technomancer with Casket, 10 Immortals with Tesla, 20 Warriors with Reapers, 10 Warriors with Flayers, Ghost Ark, a Reanimator, 1 unit of 6 Wraiths, 3 Heavy Destroyers with Exterminators, 3 Heavy Destroyers with Gore's Destructor, 1 single Lockhurst Destroyer, and then 6 Scorpec Destroyers.
Okay, can I interrupt and say one thing? This list looks like you bought 3 starter boxes and combined them into an actual competitive list.
It's so good, by
let's
the way.
take one of this. Oh yeah, my fiance bought me this one neat Orica the Diviner mini. It's so nice. I let me include it. This looks like a list built like that. Come on.
So Courtney is a
like
very...
those lists. I'm not even fucking kidding. It has all of the shit. Half of it I don't understand what it does. It has every single data sheet you can find in the codex. And it probably works fucking great. And I have no clue what it does.
It's funny you mention Orokin, Typhus, because Courtney is a very, very close friend of mine, and I was on the phone with him today, and he's like, I've got the whole army. The only thing I don't have is Orokin. Does Josh have one that I can borrow? So it might well be multiple starter sets that he's then bunged into an army. But I think he was in the case of, a bit like me, he wasn't selected for the team, so he's in the case of, we're going to take what we want to take, and
fuck it, we ball, right?
Yeah, we're going to take what we want to play, and then it's also, it's still Necrons, it's still good, Is it as good as the other two? Probably not. But hey, it's different. I think his plan is to be a little bit more put forward with it. A bit more
I
all-comers.
honestly, 100%, I think it will catch people off guard how good this list is.
Yeah.
I think people forget how good that detachment was, because we have Crypt and we have Court that have been just so prevalent. That detachment fucking slaps. You have a Scorpic Lord with a 4-up Feel No Pain that resurrects. You have a Sheras with 4-up
Who resurrects.
Who resurrects.
My God.
I mean, he usually doesn't die.
That's the thing. This list has fucking teeth. It slaps, kind of. Like the heavy destroyers, in terms of offensive powers, the heavy destroyers with the Lord, with the Veil of Darkness, and the stratagems that this detachment offers, have some of the best damage output in the Necron book. And it's like, it slaps way harder than things like Court or even Crypt can deliver. And the Technomancer joining the Wraiths, giving them stealth as well, because they were very easy to kill beforehand, is still a bitch.
Mm-hmm.
I think this list honestly slaps. I think it's gonna do way better than people expect, and just because it's Court or Crypt.
And now imagine like Courtney is actually watching this string as we go, assembling his Indomitus box or whatever that was, and being like, "Fuck yeah!"
Nah, to be honest, after what you just said, he is probably rock hard right now. But yeah, he'll do well. Like, for those that don't know, obviously Courtney is a long time staple of the England team until COVID happened, and then we both fell off the planet when it came to being selected. But yeah, multiple ETC winner, loveliest guy you'll ever meet. Love you, Courtney.
I love that list. I think it slaps.
Yeah, it's good.
Then you've got Bully Boys with Gaz. Anything particular? You got 20 boys with a War Boss, which I kind of love.
2 battle wagons, boys.
2 fucking wagons, 655 mega knobs, 2x5 knobs. I very much like inclusion of a War Boss to join the 20 boys to give them double WA. I think that is the sauce in Bully Boys currently. I think you need that squad to have a lot of more OC, to have a lot more presence on the board, to have agency instead of being tough but not that mobile, like double turn WA. Of course, it's good. The Mega Knob. All right. What are your guys' opinion on Mega Knobs in general?
Super because
they are undercosted as all fuck, of course. I think they are nowhere near as good as things like Wraiths were, or Wardens. They shouldn't exist in their current form. They are cancerous all fuck. Mm-hmm. And I believe they are mid-table menace right now.
Sure.
I think people who are at mid-tables are going to hate that unit to their bones. But I think on top tables, people will have plenty of agency how to deal with them.
While I agree, because any kind of list that also, like, you look at it and it goes, it has very little awareness shooting, doesn't deal with screens very well, it has inherent, say, flaws that maybe the Necron version actually doesn't have those issues. But played certain ways, when you start deep striking in or rapid ingressing Mega Knobs, big Gs coming around battle wagons, things, having 2 turns of advance and charge, it's deceptively faster than people think it is. And my problem with Mega Knobs is a little bit, while they are super, super tough, they actually just don't have that many attacks. They don't smack things as hard as you kind of want them to sometimes. Where in the WAG, they've got, 3 attacks each, but it's -2 swing linked, but -2 damage. Anybody with like a -1 damage strat, they just kind of whiff a little bit.
If you throw 20 fucking guns into them, they are going to never recover from that.
Well, that's
Which
what
is
the guy who won Dallas had the Horde Nids, and then
exactly.
he actually teched and took the Flying Hive Turret, who goes, "You're
Yeah,
one less attack now."
paroxysm
So it's
is
like
just the fucking best.
I charge you, and your Mega Knobs have 5 attacks. Enjoy my 20-man unit with pistols that I can still do actions with.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think they're a solvable problem, way more solvable
Sure.
than things like Wraiths or even Wardens were, I think, because their output is limited and very specialized into some, like they can fight some of the things and some of the things they will just not kill. It is also the reason why I think the 20 boys is required to deal with such things that we've described. What is missing, I believe, from this list especially, is commandos.
They're just such a points investment now because you have to take a 10-man unit. If they were
Yes.
65 points for 5, of course, 100%, see them all day. Ironically, you might even see people take 2 units of 5 at 65. But taking 1 unit at 10 at 130 feels kind of bad.
I get that.
Yeah.
You have your savings on your bonkers undercrusted Mega Knobs. Spend them there.
Sure.
Because otherwise, I think some of the lists will just close you in your deploy. You don't go first. You realize you are playing against something that can block you off in your deployment zone, and you are fucking sad, City.
Yeah. For sure.
I think that is way too much of a risk I would be willing to take with such a list. Like, there are some matchups that you will not go first, and then you will struggle throughout the whole game because you will never recover from that. Swarm is the easiest one in that regard, I think, to mention.
Yeah, sure.
If that doesn't start against something like gargoyles or infiltrating vanguards even, or anything to such extent, I think it's going to be very sad and score like 4 points, just struggling to score their cards in their deployment zone.
Mhm.
Then we have Ironstorm of Black Templars variation, which is the most fucking nothing burger list. Like, I cannot believe that this army changed in the latest slate. In the points, I mean. It's the same fucking list. That didn't lose any points. It has 3 Vindicators, which I predicted are going to be actually quite decent.
Yeah.
And I think they are. I'm not sure they are super optimal. I think they are at least a choice, and they are kind of nice in that regard. It has 3 scout squads, attack marine, 3 valiants, 2 lancers, 3 predator destructors, and 3 vindicators. Fuck it, we ball.
Yeah. So, from what I know about Michael Duff, who's playing this, I think this is also kind of a my Ironstorm beats your Ironstorm.
I can fucking see that.
Yeah. So, yeah.
This 3
That's
scout
kind of the
squads
point.
is definitely what I'm talking about when I say just fucking Ironstorm jail something, which is hilarious. Like, he plays 2 scout squads. You sometimes just go first against something that doesn't infiltrate and doesn't fly, and you just close it in your deployment zone for a turn. Even might be enough to win you the game. So I respect the choice. Which enhancement is it missing? I assume the lethals?
I don't know the names of them.
Master of the Machine War. Which one is that? Is that lethals aura or is it advanced and shoot aura? Because it's missing one. Master of Machine War. Yeah, so this is advanced whole action shoot, so it doesn't have the lethals aura, which is, I think, the one that you potentially can drop. It's a bit of a pain in the ass to drop it, okay, but I think you can absolutely
I think you need the assault
live without it.
indicators.
Then we have Chaos Knights, which are definitely the most controversial choice in this lineup. Do we like Knights in 5s?
Absolutely not.
No.
I agree.
They are when we talk
3
about
X's. All right, fucking wrap it up.
Yeah. But he's got Rotigus, so that base is really good to try and move when you don't have a 3-inch deep striking strat.
Look, I have played Rotigus in my death card, and I think it fucking slaps.
Oh,
I
it's
think
great. It's really good.
It's so good. I think it's the best part of the list. I legitimately think Rotigus is legit as fuck.
Unfortunately, Chaos Knights are a very 5 or 15 list. You know, it goes really well for you, it goes really badly for you.
Yes, and the problem is the pendulum has swung very in the direction of most of it is 5s.
Yeah, more of them are 5s nowadays than 15s, unfortunately.
Yep, which is a problem for them.
Yeah.
It's hard to find a matchup where they will deliver those 15s. There are some. It's less and less and less.
Yeah, some of them are a little bit, if I frontline and go first, I might get 15. But I'm
some of them are, most of them aren't. I do like about Chaos Knights. The fact is, and will remain forever, I believe, that people will always underestimate Chaos Knights in some regard. Because Chaos Knights are considered to be a faction which you play like a brain-dead idiot, which you frontline and then you fucking try to get through your opponent, and it sometimes works, and everybody expects you to do something like that. And then people are very surprised where they come up against a very skilled Chaos Knights player when he doesn't suddenly do that, and they struggle to kill off the army because all they did is basically math it out that they can kill fucking 7 War Dogs in a turn, but they never get to see 7 War Dogs. They get to see 1 that's standing on the objective, then you overcommit on it, then you get countercharged because they still walk through walls, and things can go south.
Yeah.
I think people are overly, like, legitimately always will be underestimating what Chaos Knights and even Imperial Knights to some extent can do with a skilled player. So that's, I think, the edge the army has right now. It's kind of under the radar.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, every time I've used them at big events, it's always been if you play the trading game with them, they're actually a lot better than people think they are. It's the people who just, I'll shove my whole army at you. Deploy on the line and just shove the army. It's like, that probably isn't going to work most of the time.
Most of the time, you are going to lose that stat check.
Yeah.
But suddenly, if your opponent has to dig you out through behind ruins and shit, they can fuck up. And they can find out.
For sure.
And the last list is Eldari. With a Wayleaper, with a Spirit Seer, with a Veinkarn, with 3 Dark Reapers, 3 Shadow Specters, 2 10s and a 5 War Sparders, and 10 Wraith Blades.
You know what this list looks like? You know that meme that we have something at home? This is like triple spinner and Rave Guard and Incarn, and we have it at home, but it is very budget version. That's how it looks like, right?
It's a bit like the beginning of 10th type Eldar than the current Eldar type list.
Beginning of 10th had fucking Wraith Knights, though.
Yeah, so he's
and
lost the Wraith Knights.
cannons with unlimited fucking dice, and I still cannot recover mentally from that.
So was it the third version of Eldar then? Just after the WTC? Yeah.
Yeah, but it has Wraith Blades instead of the absolutely bizarre broken Wraith Guard. I fucking hate that list. It's so
I don't think it's
man.
really good. I don't think it's really good as well. Like
I think
it's okay.
It's so bad, man. I think it's ass. I cannot. I love the 10-man War Spider units. I think that's fine. I think that's very cool. I think it can deal a lot of damage. I think it can especially block the table super well. With a 10-man, you can legitimately just fucking wrap parts of the board wholesale and just send it.
Scary Overwatch as well.
But fuck me, the Wraith Blades and the Incarn. The Wraith Blades especially I hate right now. I think they are so bad. Like, you are not... They will just fucking die, bro. They are
every
not
time I've seen them used, it definitely feels like they are risking life with that D6 move.
Like legitimately.
Yeah, the amount of times I think Dan, he plays for the Welsh team, was playing Vic in a semi-final at a GT, and he's like, if I roll like a 4 or 5 on my move, then your army can't see my Wraith Blades. And Vic's like, yeah, but if you don't, I'm going to pick them up. And he's like, oh, okay, oh yeah, shit.
In a meta where everybody is expected to pass stat checks like Grey Knights, to pass stat checks like Mega Nobs, and pass stat checks
Mega Nobs
like
and Rapes.
The Wraith Blades have a tough time, I feel like. Not gonna lie. I think this is a lot of points in nothing.
Yeah, especially when the Spirit Seer doesn't even have the enhancement.
All right, I'm done with the Elder list. I have nothing except I like the Terminal Spiders. That's it. other than that, not a fan. Let's move on to the Scotsmen, the Scottish. What are they bringing? So to start us off, we have World Eaters. Did Anthony fly? Is Anthony playing with Scotland?
No, I think it's Ryan.
It's Tim Dagnall, I think.
I think we agreed.
Oh my god,
this army is ass.
It's Tim Dagnall. Yes.
So,
guys, what the fuck? Why are you bringing World Eaters? That army is just ass.
Alpine terrain, yes. This terrain, less, yes. Yeah, I think they.
Nah, it's just bad. On Alpine, it was shit as well. Unless you got, let's be honest, unless you got Anthony shit-faced drunk the day before, it didn't perform. Can we just say that? The first day it was fucking amazing.
To be fair, that's actually he just needed Polish moonshine, and he would score 60 points.
Exactly. And the next day he refuses to drink it, and then he drops the ball. The World Eaters were never good. It is the Anthony's list 1-for-1. I think it has 955 points because after reduction in points, Anthony refuses to change a single fucking data sheet in his list. Because I think at this point it's just a stubborn. It's a meme to not bring 2,000 points, right? I have nothing else to say. I'm gonna be all right. I have been memeing about World Eaters being bad for so long. I don't see their pairings right now as being good. I'm sorry. What do World Eaters beat?
Okay, let's, for example, look Ignite. Sisters, you're maybe getting a draw. Guard, flippy, but not great. TS, you're getting school fucked. Grey Knights is bad. Tau, I don't know.
I think Grey Knights without Redeemers is okay. I think with Redeemers is a little more sketch. But it's still
I think Hellbrains are quite good into the actual profile of World Eaters. Like
they are not. They will kill an 8-bond if they are fucking lucky.
Yeah.
So you got 3, you kill 1 unit. It's all right. He's only got like
good
9.
investment. Good investment. But overall, I'm not seeing a lot of matchups for that army right now. I think orcs
it's tough.
are interesting. I have honestly zero fucking idea how that matchup goes for now. I think it might be good.
I love the discussions.
Don't bother Anthony to ask him if he likes his orcs matchups. I think he likes.
In Team USA chat, probably there's like this discussion between Lucas, Sean, Brian, and Anthony, and they cannot come to a conclusion for like
because
past 3 months.
I think with the orc index they couldn't fucking agree who beats who for legitimately half a year. So it must be a fucking shit show right now. I would love to see that conversation.
Yep. Brian, come on. Spill the tea.
Spill the beans. Spill the beans.
Brian, please.
Moving on from World Eaters, which is a good list. I still legitimately don't like the army. I'm memeing a lot, but I legitimately don't think they have a great matchups, especially in 5s. Then into Necrons. They are beating Necrons.
Yes.
Yeah. If you play them correctly, yeah.
No complaints there. I think if you want to counter Necrons, fucking the best. I will never disagree with that. So that's definitely a point. Then we have Canopy Court, which is bog standard.
It is model for model, identical to Josh's list.
Oh yeah, it's Josh's list.
Yeah.
I see a theme here. I'm starting to notice a theme in Team Scotland's ideas. Then we have Ines' old CSM with
Okay,
Abaddon. Yeah, what's
now
up?
let me interrupt you. I think Ines's list, actually, if you'd look into the names in the list and like the head of the list, it says, I hope you can't read any of my rules because your app got updated. That's the title of the list, and I fucking love
No,
it.
that's just Ines' nickname right now. I think that's what we call him.
Yep.
I think that's valid. Bringing the old CSM to brainfuck everybody into thinking like it's new rules, but it's still old rules. Other than that, I think that list slaps. I think old CSM was amazing after the changes. I've seen games with the old CSM before they get their codex, and I think that army was legit bonkers, especially when you were not prepared for it. I legitimately think because the codex is now out, even though it is not played in the ITT, it's going to be rougher because people like came back and thought about what the fuck CSM are doing right now. Because it's a lot of damage with all the keywords. The pacts are a bonkers mechanic. Some of the data sheets in here went down significantly. The Abaddon aura with things like Forge Wind, with the Vindicators, with the Preds, do insane amount of damage. Then you have two old warp towns rather, so no kill and scoot, but instead good actions and still decent damage output with Slanesh. Two squad of legionnaires, two with lords, which are the correct choice over the chosen, by the way. I like the list. I think it's very legit. I think it's a good stuff list with a lot of damage. I think it's good into most of the things. I think it at least
really
plays
solid.
most of the matchups.
I think one of the worst matchups that's quite popular is Sisters.
Sure.
Yeah, I can see that.
But
it passes most of the stat checks. It at least should.
Yeah. I think it should be good into Cord.
I think so. I think if you are trying to stat check it, it has plenty of damage to deal with that. I think
And you know what's also
the
great
Nurgle
with this
Vindicators
list?
can do a number on you. Yeah, what's up?
There's also great thing about this list that Ines can kill his opponent in 40 minutes and then watch other Scottish players play and get aneurysm from seeing their approach to the game. So, an absolute win-win situation. Love you, boys.
This is legitimately me at STC, by the way, at the event where me and Duda just swapped armies. We just raced to we tried to do our games as quick as possible to watch the other person just fuck it up consistently. That was the best. Then we have an Iron Storm, which is two Whirlwinds version with two squad of Incurses, which is a lot, I feel like. There's still the Illuminator package with the Impulsors and 3 Reapers. Sure. Almost standard. Some choices like bringing 2 Whirlwinds.
Double Whirlwind. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And still the Eliminator package, even though it went up. No complaints. But BT Ironstorm as a first defender is kind of fucked still. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And then, very consistently, which is extremely surprising to me, by the way, that we have so many Sisters lists in the top teams.
Yeah.
I thought Sisters were not popular in the Great UK, but
I think there's like 14 Sisters at this event.
that's kind of crazy.
And this is a very straightforward list. Palatine, Celestine, Triumph, 1 squad of Sisters, Immolator, 2 times Rhino, 3 times Arcos, 3 Castigators, Penitent, 3 times Seraphim, 2 times Zephyrim. So there's, I think, there is one thing that I already spoke to Bruce. I think that you could change in this. Like, if you're already taking Palatine with the Battle Sister squad, not taking Dialogus is still wrong. Because she just upgrades that squad a lot if you're already investing a lot of points into that. So I think maybe making small changes in the composition of the units to actually include that. I know he has Immolator for that squad, but that's like very niche, small thing to pick about. But everything I said about Sisters earlier, I think applies here as well. Only difference is that, again, I think this list has way more chop than the other lists we saw because there's
no Val. You are going to the ITT Typhus. Are you bringing the Vulcan package?
I have no clue how UKTC boards work.
With the Vulcans.
But
that's fair.
Assuming that I expect the other teams to have combination of Iron Storm, Cord, GK, I wouldn't expect that many teams to bring Thousand Sons and Eldar. I would probably bring Valgans and Triple Castigator.
That's fair.
Yep.
Moving on then. Overall thoughts on the lineup? I don't like the World Eaters. I hate that Bruce is playing Sisters instead of Death Guard, by the way. It's like, it's a trait. It's just a personal thing, honestly. Bruce, what the fuck? Sisters, really? Fell in solo. Other than that, no complaints. I especially like the Innes's list. I think it's kind of amazing, but who the fuck plays old decks when the new out is out? Get alive.
I mean, as Ines said in his list as well, he doesn't have enough brain cells for T-Son, so he brought CSM.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair.
Also, Thousand Sons on this terrain is less great, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then we have the list. The last team. I cannot into English. Sorry, boys.
Another Sisters. Fucking hell. Is everybody on Sisters right now in England?
Yeah, this one's quite different.
Yeah. I will let you read it, Pumba. Like, just enjoy it.
All right. So we have Demonifuge, which we have established as one of the best datasheets in the game. We have the Magifier with Lethanis, which is God knows what. I think here's a stick with something on it, and Lethanis is God knows what. We have the Vault package. What's Lethanis?
You want me to explain that model, or
not for now? For now, I will just go through the list. You'll do the rest. We have a Battle Sister squad. We have 2 Emos, 2 Rhinos, 2 Castigators with battle cannons. The rest of the Vulcan package. 3 times 10 Repentia. 3 times Retributors, possibly going into Rhinos / the Immolators. We have 2 squads of Seraphims. We have a total of 0 Archroflagellants in that list. Total of 0 Catherines in that list. And
0 engines.
And 0 Penitent engines in that list, correct. And also, just as a complete note on the ITT meta, we have seen 0 Exorcists, am I correct?
Yep.
No Exorcists in all of the Sisters list. So this is different.
Yeah. I think, to be fair, my problem with this style of list. So first of all, Imagifier. She gives rerolls of Miracle Dice when unit within 12 dice of her, and she also gives reroll either 1 or 3 Miracle Dice at the start of your turn, depending if she's wounded. So she just gives you fishing for dice. Like, there's an argument that you either bring Catherine or other character that gives you some kind of Miracle Dice manipulation.
And I assume she is way less expensive.
It's 60 points for one model on a 32
less
base.
than half of it, yeah.
And she can resurrect, so she's like similar use case sometimes as missionary, right? So what I find, this is a much more anti-tank version of Sisters. Like the Repentia squads, unless they die to Overwatch, because they are still only toughness 3, 6 up invul, 5 up feel no pain bodies, can actually carve through a lot of units with +1 to wound, and also they deal decent damage on fight on death. So this army looks like here's a lot of Meltas, reroll wounds, and I will just kill you with a lot of Meltas. Like there's 6 multi-Melta shots plus 24 plus 4, 34 shots from multi-Meltas in this list.
Yeah, so basically anytime anything from that goes through, it's probably 8 damage.
Yeah.
Legit. No Arcos.
And Repentia as I think there's a reason not to play Arcos. Arcos we're I think approaching that point that in the current meta they are not as effective.
Yeah,
because Iron Storm is toughness 10. So suddenly you have a huge drop off in your damage output.
9.
Only Impulsors are toughness 9. Gladiators and the remaining things are toughness 10. So suddenly you're wounding. So you do not kill or even come close to killing with Arcos, one vehicle with +1 to wound.
Yep.
Also, into Grey Knights, they are really not great. They maybe deal like 3-4 wounds to a Nemesis Dread Knight, which is less than ideal.
Yeah, and the Repentias are actually great at that.
Yeah, unless they die to Overwatch.
Yes, but Overwatch is a one-time thing.
Yeah, so I think, and also into like Orcs, unless you're facing Green Tide, into Bully Boys, Repentia also do kind of nothing into Mega Snobs, let's be fair, because wounding on force is not great. But you can see that the benefit of Arcos is into matchups that you're really good into, and I find maybe Repentia is a way of skewing yourself into the tougher targets in the current meta. And if you already have a read that the meta will be tougher, bringing 34 multi-Melta shots is not necessarily bad. It's really volatile in this faction, but it doesn't have to be bad. And again, this Codex index is very deep, so you have so many choices. That makes sense.
Yeah, I actually quite like Boxy's list quite a lot. This is Stephen Box's list. Yeah, I actually quite like it. I think for ITT, this is actually probably one of the better sisters lists maybe that I've seen. It actually
maybe for this meta.
It maybe has a little bit more purpose. It doesn't have the grind maybe as some of the others do, but it has if you're a vehicle list, you can't push on this. I don't think it's. I still don't think it's I think it would be very, very dicey against Court.
Oh no, you're still losing that.
Yes, but with that many Melter shots, it might make them think a little bit more. They probably do have to trade up a little bit more because the Repentia are going to do a bit more work. And
they do not. They also do not. Into Court, they kill one Wraith.
Okay.
I still think they do. Okay, against Kurd, it's kind of fucked still. But I think it's good against, legitimately, if I were Grey Knights going against this, I think it's dicey as fuck. It's too many Melta shots, and the Repentia are good against that. I know, because I have played that list, and I have lost a full Dread Knight from just the Repentia squad. With +1 to us especially, I think they are very well positioned to fuck you up.
Yeah, on average they should deal 9 wounds, but with some help of shooting or grenades, they can actually kill one.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yep.
Or if you don't know, lose one from disembarking or something like that. The classic sisters way of, oh, that girl is fucking gone. I guess we slap now.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and then we have what? Iron Storm. What's the difference in this list? It's just Black Templars and regular gladiators.
Yeah, it's bringing some regular gladiators.
It's got a Calidus.
It has a Calidus. And a Lieutenant with a combi weapon.
Okay.
It's actually less tanks in total, right?
It's 9. It's only 9.
Yeah, it's only 9. It's
Lancers are like what, 170, so they are quite expensive.
160. Yeah. It's all the same to me. I think they're 160 because Vindicator is 175 and it's 15 points more than the Lancer. Yeah, and then it's just Ironstorm. I cannot with this army anymore.
Yeah.
It's very popular here.
Then we have
Bully
Bully
Boys.
with
5
3 squads of Mega Nobs.
6 war bosses.
Yep. Interestingly, all of the Mega Nobs are bringing war bosses and Mega Armor. And then we have 2 squads of boys, potentially with war bosses.
Yep.
I assume. I mean, they can join either Nobs
Or
and
boys.
one can join 10 boys, or then you can join. You have options basically where to join your war bosses in that list, which I kind of enjoy. And then we have 2 times 5 gits with 5 trucks. Very solid. All right. On the topic of Bully Boys, where are we standing on war bosses in Mega Armor versus the mechs in Mega Armor? What are we thinking? Because 1 definitely provides a lot more damage. I mean, a lot is basically it doubles the damage of the squad almost. It's still not amazing, but it definitely does. And the other definitely makes you. It does a couple of things, right? So it gives you 4-up invuln. It's quite expensive for what you're getting, but it gives you 4-up invuln in shooting, and then it resurrects 1 Mother per.
So
round.
I think the resurrection rule will not be as impactful as people think. You will just bog down that unit, hoping that you will deal with it later.
Yeah, but
And
it gives you some agency, right? As in, it does the classic resurrection stuff, as in you kill 2 Mega Nobs, 1 comes back, and now it
don't
charges something
think-
that's close.
Yeah. I just don't think it's as powerful as people might think. With how I find the play pattern into Mega Nobs sometimes is that you kill everything around them because you can kill everything around them, and you cannot deal with Mega Nobs without using too much firepower. So,
Sure.
And I don't know. I kind of like the idea of war bosses, but I'm biased in a sister's way where I found if there is no war boss, I can actually tie up the Mega Nobs squads with Arcos. If there is war boss, it actually changes the map quite significantly.
That's one of the things, right? Like it legitimately makes that squad way more threatening.
So I like the idea of war bosses, but I would need to play with the faction to actually get a better read on it. My take is you're playing very aggro faction that wants to threaten as much damage as it can at any point of the game. So you want to deal a crushing blow that the opponent cannot recover from. And I find the way of dealing more damage maybe is better than boosting resiliency of units that you are probably still resilient enough that people will not try and deal with. So for now, I kind of like the war bosses more than the mechs, but that's my take. Nathan?
Yeah, I actually kind of prefer the damage output because the other one's a little bit more situational. When you got 2-up save, if you've got cover, 4-up invulns come up less often, then you'd have to start being AP4 before it really makes a difference. And then just with how few attacks they have, especially outside of WAG, if they do, I think they need the damage output. Because otherwise you are just getting tagged by stuff. You got 10 attacks. Not bothered.
That's the problem, right?
Yeah.
I honestly don't know. I think there are some matchups where not having the mech in your squad will hurt you because of the potential output in shooting. The one that comes to mind immediately, of course, is Thousand Suns, because they can remove your save and then just blast you.
Sure.
I'm not sure it matters a lot, though. Unconclusive is my opinion, but personally, I think on paper prefer the war bosses in Mega Armor to the mechs. Moving on, we have Thousand Suns, which are bog standard. So with Ariman, 2 Exalted on discs, 3 Internal Masters, Magnus, 2 Sorcerers, 1 for
basically
Lord of
3
Woodland,
Infernal Masters running solo. Or
No, the Infernal Masters
so-
are always joining the Exalted
yeah.
Sorcerer on discs / Ahriman can run solo.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I just said the other way around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 4 Rubric squads, 1 Zanger squad, 3 Cultist squad. No Rhinos.
I think 3 times cultist is too much.
Sure. I cannot hate that choice, bro. It's 6.
Yeah, they are so cheap, but I still think
It's-
3 times might be too much.
It's it's fucking. It doesn't matter at all.
Like,
I
I don't know,
You
I would
can
look
bring
for
3.
points
It's fine.
and
They have
just
scouts. They are broken, man.
Yeah, I know. I would still try to look for 1 Rhino. That's what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
And that's all. And then Eldar, which are
it's
again
very
different.
Close. Yep. So now we have a very much the kind of MSU Eldar list, but not Inari. So we have a Wayleaper, who's a warlord. We have a Farseer on a bike. We have a Fugan, 2 times fire dragons, 2 fire prisms. Spicy tech, actually. Very UKTC.
Yeah.
10 Shadow Specters, so beginning Shadow Specters, 2 Shroud Runners, 2 D-Cannons, 2 Hawks, 2 Warwalkers with Lances, and Spiders. What I immediately absolutely hate about this list is the lack of Spiders. Just 1 squad seems not enough. And 2 fire prisms with 2 Warwalkers, especially the fire prisms, seem very UKTC.
Yeah, it's got ranged anti-tank rather than necessarily playing the fast little units, which I think is arguably the better option. It's just got more ranged anti-tank. I know Ben really likes his 10 Shadow Spectres unit.
I cannot
Sky
hate
Runner.
it.
Yeah.
It's Fire and Fade. It's still so good. Like they went up and you barely noticed. The only thing I dislike in this list, is the lack of War Spiders, because after playing Eldar myself, I think that datasheet is the most ridiculous thing in 40k. I legitimately think War Spiders are more broken than Meganobs. I'm not kidding. The things you can pull off with it is just fucking nuts. But yeah, overall, very good list. What do we think about the lineup as a whole?
I quite like it.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
I think at least their sisters is slightly different. It might have a bit more of a role. It's a little bit. Some of the choices are interesting in 5, like we've talked about. Sisters in 5 is an interesting choice. Bully Boys, ironically, could get bullied in pairings. You've got everyone's taken Ironstorm because our terrain is just so Ironstorm does well in Europe. It does very well in England because our terrain is just suited for it. Thousand Suns is an interesting choice on our terrain for the same reasons that there's great fire lanes. It's hard to hide Magnus. He doesn't have the same... Because obviously I think, for people that don't know, our terrain isn't on on the WTC line of sight blocking mats.
Yeah, it doesn't have the plates basically, right?
Yes. So the fire lanes become a lot bigger. And the actual terrain size is a lot smaller. So though that base that was able to hide Magnus behind now doesn't exist.
And his wings are redonkulous big.
Massive, yeah. So yeah, it's an interesting choice because I always kind of feel sometimes if you can drop Magnus, the list starts crumbling a little bit. But then again, killing Magnus is never easy, depending on what you have. I think it's a decent lineup. I think we've seen definitely a pattern across the UK teams where it's Ironstorm, Bully Boys, quite more the sisters than we thought, more thousands.
Yeah, a lot more sisters than I would have expected, honestly.
Same.
I think that's the biggest surprise for me. Right at the time where I'm like, sisters are not particularly amazing. Especially, I think we had that thought with Typhus about Death Guard and sisters after Alpine, that they didn't perform as well as we would like them to, and swerved off to the side with the sisters not being particularly amazing in 5s, suddenly every single top team in the UK is bringing sisters.
Yeah. Well, we're not, but yeah.
Almost every.
So
Talking about
you
that.
want to quickly?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Talking about that. Would you like to run through your lineup? What you are guys bringing?
Yes, I don't know if you want to bring up just our lists or whatever you want to do.
I don't have
I
it,
can-
so just
Let me
That's
just.
cool. Yeah, sure.
You can start, and I will share the screen just in BCP.
Yeah, so I'll go through my list first because it's what I'm taking. I took my Death Guard because they were like, we've got a spot left on the team. Do you want to play? And I was like, yeah, sure. And they're like, what do you want to play? And I'm like, this. And they're like, okay. So I'm taking the army I want to take. Fuck them. So Death Guard with Chaos Knights and Demons.
they didn't take you for the team. Now you're gonna just punish them.
Fuck him, we ball. I love this shit, by the way. When I saw this, I was like, fuck me. No Plague Marines, brother.
Nah, I just keep having Plague Marines just not trade the way I want them. I'm either using them incorrectly or they're just not for me. So this is the 18 unit Plague Eldar, Plague Stormer, I've called it.
Thanks.
So Typhus for just deep striking, mortals, actions, rapid ingressing, all that good stuff. 3 cultist units because who doesn't love sticky objectives and stealth? Not stealth, scout.
Especially in the first.
Yep. 3 Predator Destructors because I can see the entire table on these things. 3 Bloat Drones, 3 Plague Burst Crawlers, 2 Nurgling units, 2 Brigands, and a Carnivore. So it's 12 vehicles with... It all kind of synergizes with the somewhat busted army ability in the being able to, if I play a combat army, I can double stack -1s to hit with Nurglings. If it's Wraiths or combat armies or whatnot, I can go, if it's Bully Boys, not Bully Boys, if it's Green Tide, you go, cool story, -1 OC. So good luck trying to get enough boys on. And that toughness 5, don't really care, win on 2s anyway. And you just don't really do a lot of damage to Plague Burst Crawlers and take 3 -1 leadership checks. Oh yeah, cool, you can't bring your unit back now from my PPCs. So yeah, it's got a place. It's still pretty drawy into most games, but I felt it was able to push differentials a little bit more by just having 18 active scoring units.
Yep.
Just doing their job, doing their work.
All right.
So I like it. It's fun.
Can we address the elephant in the room? Where the fuck is the Krabby Boy?
They said it had to be on a base.
What the fuck?
Yeah. So
what do you mean it has to be on the base? It doesn't come with a base in the box.
I bought one and it came in a
The
base.
Soul Grinder.
Yeah.
What?
Oh, also the
WTC has put them on the base and then dropped that because it doesn't have one.
So also the other problem is all the UK GT, even the little ruins, are over 4 inches. So he can't actually move over half of them. So it becomes.
I legitimately didn't do that once, I think, either on Alpine or when playing like on WTC terrain.
Yeah. So I took my Soul Grinder boy to the last event I went to, but for this one, it's because I can shoot more. I swapped him out for the 3rd Predator and another Cultist squad. Because
I am so disappointed in it not being here. It fits so right in.
It's great, but it sucks ass on a base.
Yeah, I mean, on a base is absolutely fucking unplayable. I can agree to that. It's just sad. It's sad. All right, moving on. We've got what else?
So Josh's list is the same as the Scottish one we went through. It's exactly the same.
Yep.
We then have. Oops, it's gone off the screen.
Oh, sorry. I struggle.
Manny's got Eldar.
Yep.
So we'll go through Manny's list.
Solid name, by the way.
Alpine tweaked.
It literally is what it is, right?
Yeah, in typical Manny fashion, he went changed everything, and then 10 minutes before the submission, submitted something that was very similar to what it was. So he's obviously added the Storm Guardians now, because with Iverain it's pretty good. He's got triple Dark Reapers now for certain matchups. Spectres, still jump, shoot, jump. Still 3D cannons because indirect is annoying. 2 Hawk
I actually
units.
agree with that so much. I think people are dropping them left, right, and center. I think that model is broken.
They still do work.
So much. There's
Yeah.
just so much.
Especially on this terrain as well. 2 Hawk units, 3 Spider units, or 2 Spider units?
2 Spider units.
2 Spider
Two
units.
spider units.
Yeah, so it was, do you take an extra Spider unit or the 2 Reavers? The Reavers help you do certain aspects.
Mhm.
And
So
then...
from what I'm seeing, he has dropped the Harlequin bikes.
Drop the Haywire bikes.
Exactly.
It was a bit
And
overkill when he's got 3 Scourge units.
That's fair. The Scourges are all Haywire still.
Yeah.
The Reavers
Darlan's
are, by the
just-
way, I would just say, I have played with a unit of Reavers in my list that I brought to the Polish tournament. Reavers are so insane in Eldari with a single reroll of heal and wound with that hit lance within 16 fucking inches.
Yeah. They're really annoying.
They are fucking nuts, legitimately. By the way, 2 OC each on a 60 movement
OC6
unit.
is super fucking
By the way,
annoying.
more OC than Eldar than Harlequin boat transport. Saying.
It out OCs a 5-man infantry unit that isn't battle line.
Yeah,
Fucking
they're really
crazy.
good. Yeah,
very good.
Yeah, so we come to 2 units. So yeah, obviously this is for. There's so many fucking tank armies, as you see.
Yeah, this just destroys anything that's tank.
Yeah. Then
Next
we
up.
we've got Harrison's list. So
Which is boring as
big
Ironstorm.
surprise, Blackstorm, Ironstorm.
With 3 impulsors, some Reapers, some
Can you
Valorants.
just skip it, please? I don't want to.
Terminators.
Yeah,
It's the same
2
shit.
Predators,
Fuck it,
big
man.
Stallion.
I cannot. I refuse.
And then
And the
our
last
last list
one.
is Old CSM.
Yes, it is. All CSM.
Because if you didn't
With
like
10
our
thermies.
first,
With 10 thermies.
With 10 thermies.
if you didn't like our first tank army and you didn't like our second tank army, here's our third tank army.
That is a choice.
It's a choice.
Yeah, it's a gunline version basically, right? So with 3 Preds and 2 Vindies and 2 Venom Crawlers, cool.
Yeah.
So Raptors do the missions and shit.
So the Venom Callers were meant to be 3 bike units, but it's one of those we didn't have the bike units, and then bikes kind of suck in the new book. So here we are. So Venom Callers are still good. I like them.
I legitimately like the Venom Crawler.
Yeah.
I don't know if people are so down on it. I think people dislike it as a data sheet, from what I've heard, and I think
really
they
like
are
it.
perfectly fine especially for 110. If they were more expensive, like they used to be, I didn't like them so much.
It's like 12 shots.
With the fucking, I mean,
Nurgle.
the Dark Box exists still, so
They'll
sustain
rent
5s.
5-man squads. Yeah, strength 6 minus
It's
2.
very
damage.
respectable brawling unit for the start of your game.
Yeah, they're still 110 tanky.
Yeah, I look at this and I see a Death Guard drone that's slightly different and slightly more expensive.
Yeah.
That's absolutely fine, I think.
So yeah, we took some interesting choices. We'll just see how we get on. Ignite's still the favourite. They've won the last 2 in a row. So yeah, 2 or 3. 2, I think. So yeah, see how we get on.
All right.
Solid lists.
And that's going to be it for our list reviews. Overall, the UK meta, weird stuff, man. Sisters, very popular. A lot of more T-Sons than I would have expected as well. Not Ironstorm being way more prevalent than Blood Angels. I think it's down to the terrain. That's my opinion, at least. That's my assumption. Anything else that you caught your eyes? A good spread between Bully Boys and Green Tide, I think.
It was interesting that there was like only David took guard. I thought there might still be some people who stuck out with the indirect, going, you know what, even in 5-man teams, and there's not that. I didn't know if some of the guard armies might turn into a little bit of his indirect and his 2 tank commanders and 30 Kazakin, and it's still like, actually, this is still a problem. Yeah, it's one of those, didn't know where guard might be going, so I thought some people might still be testing them, still trying them out, but no. Yeah. We like our Ironstorm. That's kind of the
Ironstorm good. I hate that army, by the way. I think
it's
it
boring.
could be.
By the way, we don't have many questions, which we'll still not make it within 2 hours. We
never do,
boys.
bro. I
you did last time when I wasn't there.
I gave up. We actually, I think, managed. I think we last time we managed.
It was 1.5.
Yeah.
Good job, boys.
Thank you.
So questions. Which CSM detachments seem the best for teams and what roles do they play in pairings? So let me start this one. I think people are overhating the Renegades on the objective shit.
Overhating or overhyping?
Overhyping. I don't think it will be as good.
I think Renegades... My take is I think Renegades are going to be very interesting because they will require you to get a specific matchup. If you play against something that cannot throw trash on the objectives, that's a good matchup. If you are playing against akin to elves, sisters, or anything that has enough chaff to just don't fucking care and not stand on objectives, the Renegades will struggle with the damage output outside of the objectives. They still have the most broken stratagem in the game currently.
True. That one
Which is like, people are forgetting how busted the stratagem is. Yeah. That stratagem can just make the detachment broken without all the damage. What I'm talking about, of course, is the fallback / movement stratagem, which is
at the end of the fight.
Can we address this? They have reprinted fucking Overrun. They have done it. It now exists, but it's better. You can fall back with it. You can fall back with a fucking full Rhino with 12 dudes inside. Desperate breakout from your charge something and then desperate breakout towards your you are almost unchargeable. It's a can of worms that I'm very scared to open and even touch upon how broken the stratagem is. So just by that virtue, I think Raiders are still good. I think people are overestimating how good they might be, especially against good opponents. They will struggle to do damage. If you might get stat checked by something and then have a problem. You might come up against even a Canopted Court and then something just stays on the objective, you commit onto it, and then something just fucks off with the reactive move to not be on the objective. You might not kill it. Because without the extra damage from the Packed-on Zealots, I think people are not understanding how much damage you actually lose. But I think Raiders are still good. Other than that, I think most of the detachments at least could see play. And it's way too early for me to give my tier list of a detachment, I'd say. I legitimately see MSU Packed-on Zealot being good. Or maybe you just fucking maybe what your team needs is 60 cultists on your opponent's face with the Deceptors. Maybe you just need that into your team comp, and CSM can provide that. So I legitimately think they can fill multiple roles, but you must be very conscientious of what they are trying to achieve. They will have, even Raiders especially, I think it's a good point. Raiders seem so much better than anything else. I don't think they are.
Yeah, that's what I tried to say.
Yeah, but Still, the best stratagem in the entire game of 40k right now exists in the detachment, and the amount of shit it can deliver is unprecedented. It's basically Phantasm level broken, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And of course, warp talents are fucking crazy. I think it has been said by everybody involved. But right now, we kind of don't know. The points literally dropped today, right, for the CSM book. So the testing in terms of what they can deliver in teams is kind of ongoing.
Sure. Yeah, some of the other detachments have a little bit of play. Say Mass Terminators in the -1 to wound. It's quite good. They've got from a Lord, you can go for a free Feel No Pain. It's always nice. Makes them quite tanky, but then the damage output's kind of meh. You've got the Demon Vehicle Army. While you're slowly killing your entire army, if you stack all the upgrades and buffs, like 3 Forge Fiends with 3 Tech Marines, and then the Demon Prince who gives you +1 strength, actually, when you've got all those shots at strength 11 with +1 to wound against other tanks, you start hitting on 2s because of the Tech Marine, and then you wounded vehicle. So it's 2s and 2s against a vehicle with like sustained and lethal, so or whatever you want. So yeah, you do a bonkers amount of damage to vehicles, but then the rest of your army sucks ass because you've just spent 1,300 points. So you've got like 3 units that run around and do scoring and a little bubble of death. That's about it. And then maybe a Vindicator, because for a CP you can make that one a demon for a turn. So cool. But you're killing your army slowly. So there's definitely play. But yeah, it does seem the front runner, especially because there's just some dumb things like there's just some dumb stuff in there. That strat is stupid. It's awful for the game. I thought we'd learned from that, but apparently we never do.
We never do.
Moving forward, would you prefer if WTC used the new mission pack if it drops around the document cutoff? Fuck yeah. I just want full chaos. Also, so we can again see the teams that have advanced knowledge shit the bed. I would just love that.
So what you must understand about the WTC captain's chat is there are always 2 camps. One camp is represented by people like Anthony and Ines, and they would like to cut off the date for WTC publications around January, something like that, and play that fucking meta. And Poland will always be the other camp because chaos is where we thrive. Every time shit goes down, we do well. It's kind of what happens every single time. The best results that Poland has ever had is when like edition changes last year, previous edition changes, complete fucking mayhem.
Over history, our worst spot after edition change was second. Every other time was first.
So us two will always be in favor of playing the newest stuff, probably, just by the virtue of that. Overall, I would just actually love to everything come out that we are playing on before the cutoff date, which is the 1st of July.
Yeah, there's like one thing
I think that's an honest date. It's a very long time. What I really would hate to see, because I kind of hate it in general, I would hate us to play something that is like almost 2 months old. I just hate the feeling of playing like a different game to what's actually being played.
And there's also like the problem with then viewership, streams, people following, because you are not as into it when you follow the outdated meta. Especially if there would be like an emergency data slate or shit like that, or
if there would be a mission changes, right? That basically
already that changes impacts.
Because you can deal with like slate changes or meta changes or points updates. You can kind of see how we are playing on an old patch, but it's the same game. If missions change and we play all the missions, and it's like the cutoff date is the 1st of July, the missions go out a week after. by the time WTC rolls out, it's been a new mission pack for everybody for a month. And they fucking forgot how all the missions work, because every time a new edition drops, for example, everybody suddenly forgets how it was to play the old edition, right? Yeah. So I love the Typhus freeze, by the way. Fucking ace.
Yeah, usually the general consensus is most teams want to play whatever it is the latest edition. I know it becomes a ball ache and it's a problem, but like you say, especially Typhus's main point about like it just tanks the streaming because nobody's interested. Nobody's interested if you're watching like, oh, remember that game that was 2 months ago that doesn't.
Yeah, that's the problem. Whereas things like big esports games, League, I don't know, Dota, CS can kind of get away with that because they have enough viewership. I think it's in the best interest for events like WTC to expand and to make them popular, to kind of be as inviting as possible, which is, I don't know, playing the new game.
Yeah.
And that's at least my point of view.
That's always been WTC's issue. They know that there is always a summer update at some point, but they always hold it in August. I know it's school holidays, teachers. Most teachers are 40k players. But yeah, it's tricky. It's always going to be tricky.
It's been there for years. It's going to continue forever, probably. It's always going to be a debate year after year.
Yeah.
Going forward with our questions without Typhus, because he's fucking died probably. Seeing from the face, that was basically him dying, and we caught it live. Thank you. Why is Poland going to win? Because Shits is going to hit the fan and we figure shit out. That's my assumption.
Yeah. You're very, very well prepared. Very, very... It's always a thing that if I was to compare, say, the England camp versus the Poland camp, you guys play more team events than us. You play on WTC terrain all year round rather than 3-4 months out. It's always going to be there. You have a tight-knit group. It's very good.
I think our biggest advantage year after year is always going to be a couple of things. Even though our community is relatively small, it's quite tight-knit, so we have gathered around a bunch of players, a solid group of players to test shit with, that we can get good data from, which I especially think is important. And the second one is obviously the fact that we have built our system and our tournament system around WTC's terrain and WTC system, and the team events are extremely popular over here.
Yeah.
So we are... when we are going to WTC, is our home turf, basically. These are the tables and the system that we are normally playing on, which is huge. Like, you can see the difference in us going to the ITT when we went, and we definitely didn't perform as well there as like many people expect us, because it was a different system. And it's a jump that many players need to do when going to the WTC, because we are all playing that system all year round. It's basically what we always play. It's nothing different for us, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Next question. As someone still developing in the competitive scene, what's the best way to deal with the imposter syndrome ahead of attending my first WTC as a single player for the Wars Masters and a coach for the team section of the week? I honestly don't know, because I think a good chunk of WTC players still have the imposter syndrome. I can attest myself as a team pod captain, I still kind of have it every single time. It's gonna be my third WTC, and I'm still, every time I come there and play a game, I'm like, am I definitely good enough to do that?
Yeah, that always comes up. Like, I guess I'm slightly further down the line. I started tournaments when I was 12, been playing tournaments for 19 years. My first DTC was 2010, so I did 8 of them. So you kind of, it's a weird one where if you're on the team, they've picked you for a reason usually.
Yep.
For the actual WTC singles, so the War Masters event, mate, it's a game of toys. Who cares? There's no consequences. You win a game, awesome. If you don't win a game, it's a game of toys. Nobody cares.
War Masters,
Yeah.
as a whole, is the event I would recommend the most if somebody would like to coach, if they would like to get better. I think it's the most international event probably you are going to attend.
Sure.
The level overall is great. The event itself is run flawlessly, so it's like the best place to get to know the WTC atmosphere.
Yeah. Also, it's the biggest step out of your country's meta, because you'll get there and go, that list doesn't look great, and you actually play it and go, he plays it like that. That's amazing.
Yeah. So I think legitimately what you are doing, so playing War Masters before coaching for the WTC, is the best way to get through that, because you are going to experience and see how welcoming the event is, and that is basically it's still just playing Warhammer with a great atmosphere around you, and I think that is the best thing you can do to get through the imposter syndrome. But to completely avoid it, I don't have an answer for you because I still haven't.
Sure.
With all the new codexes coming out lately, do you think CK can make an 8-man team? I still rate them, but you really need to protect them in pairs at the moment. As we have discussed when discussing one of the teams for the ITT, I think all three of us have agreed that they are not particularly well suited in 5s. What do you think in 8s? I actually still have the similar opinion. Maybe even worse.
So for me, I think they have more of a place in 8 than they do in 5. But they are still that kind of volatile. They're a stat check that is not as, say, stat checky as Wraiths are, or say Ironstorm is, because it just doesn't necessarily have that. I don't even know how to describe it. Yeah, it's one of those. If you have a very good player, like I wouldn't be surprised if, say, Australia has it this year.
Mm-hmm.
And
with people like Matt Mossoli playing them consistently throughout the season.
Yeah.
And I think people like Dick from Netherlands, who have been performing with them throughout the whole season. I think players like that who are very specialized in that faction can still surprise your opponent, because people are expecting Chaos players to be shit, which they really are not.
No.
And some of them will slap your ass. So overall, in a meta sense, I don't think they make it. If you are a CK player, or you have a CK player who is very experienced with them, I have someone local to me, for example, in one of my local teams, who is going to almost every single Polish event, and he is consistently delivering results, including like a 10-10 against Duda's Thousand Suns. Nobody fucking expected that. He delivered, right? Mm-hmm. So there you go. I also, of course, gave to the endless shit for that throughout the whole weekend, which was very funny. But my point being, the meta is hostile towards them. If you are a great player with them, or you have someone who is expert with them, I think the meta is also open enough and not expecting them enough, or respecting them enough, that they can still perform.
They still have the unique aspect of actually being quite good on most terrain sets.
Mm-hmm. And thank you for the $5 super chat from Clown Mode. How does Green Tide fare into Ironstorm, GC, and Grey Knights?
So, Ironstorm...
Depending on the amount of Gladiator Reapers, I assume?
Yeah, it's how much anti-infantry you've got, and I think it's also first turn, because it's a little bit of a... If I deep strike a unit over and I get my charge off, then
fuck me, I guess.
Yeah, you're stuck in a corner while I score my shit. So yeah, it can be a bit dicey. 5 up with toughness 5. It's still on those 3 units is a pain to deal with. It's a lot of OC. You have to shift whole things, and if he's got CPs to either blood surge into you, or he's got CP to bring the unit back or whatnot, yeah, it becomes annoying. It becomes really annoying. So I think if an Iron Storm just gets to shoot you all game on a pretty open table, then yeah, you're going to die. But that, I think, is quite dicey. I would probably give it... If Iron Storm goes first, I would probably give it to Iron Storm.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
it's flippy.
I think it's flippy, but I think it's very, very easy for Iron Storm to tech to start taking two 12-inch blockers. The game's over.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think we've got one unit of 12-inch blockers, which just, I think, helps that matchup a little bit.
Yep.
GSC, not really seeing a lot of GSC. GSC is really tricky if they bring all their shit back. If they don't bring their shit back, then...
I honestly think it's favored for GSC.
Oh, okay.
I think it is. That's very maybe Meissen biased or something, or like just in theory, because I have just seen a lot of GSC beforehand.
Sure.
There's definitely problems. You definitely don't want to take Aberrants, because fuck me. If you take those, then it's fucked. But if you go with a more proper GSC list that's running just a billion neophytes and the hybrids and whatever, the infantry squads, I think GSC might have a very nice game into that. I think their damage is definitely enough and good enough profiles to deal with the orcs.
Does that game depend on who takes the table first? A bit like a GSC mirror, because they're both quite deep strikey, hoardy.
I think if you... All right. So it depends on two things. First thing, are you trolling, and do you have the infiltrate 20-man neophyte squad that is infiltrating?
Sure, that helps a lot.
And are you trolling, and do you have the commanders?
Sure, yeah.
Then you have kind of two roll-offs.
Yeah, that's big, yeah.
So I think these are the two tech pieces that you need to consider when doing that.
And then Grey Knights, I think it depends which Grey Knight list it is. I would imagine if it's, say, 5 Dread Knights, multiple Redeemers, I'd probably give it to Grey Knights, but it's not going to be a smash, because you're gonna have to end game score most of your points, because you're probably stuck a bit in your deployment zone for a bit, but you have to chew your way out. You're very good at chewing your way out, but it's difficult. I think if you have say for singles, if Green Tide becomes very popular, you might see more people going back to, say, like the Purifier Crow unit, which actually is very good then at killing infantry. So it becomes a little bit of because they'll wipe 20 boys off.
Yeah, it's a matter of tech, I think.
Yeah.
In this particular case, it's a matter of specific Grey Knights list. Most of the list, if they tech for it, I would give it to Grey Knights still.
Sure. Not the Helverin version.
No, definitely not. Yeah, we don't have solid data on that, because let's be honest, both the Orc Codex, it's been a couple of weeks, but it's not enough for me to have anything definite. I am very wary of giving definite stuff by the timeline. And then we have one more question from the chat. Steven Box's sister says, do you think that can carry over to singles? Well, I don't think so, because I believe it loses to Court badly, and you should still, unfortunately, be expecting a lot of Court. And without the Arcos, I think the Green Tide matchup is also fucked.
Yeah, potentially. So it's a weird one. So it depends on what your tournament scene looks like. Actually, our scene, other than Josh, who does very well with them, there's not actually that many Court players. There's way more it's obviously changed since the balance update. I don't quite know where the UK is. I don't think there's been a super major since. But yeah, I think it can translate it is a bit more of a mech meta in certain places of the world. So that many multi shots might help you into certain things. It is a lot more extreme. But if I was to say, do I think sisters are going to win events consistently? Possibly not. If you take a more skew sisters list like this, you're probably less like. How do I put this? You're less likely, but on the odd chance you might. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it has
Your
a path to
matchups
victory.
yeah.
If you avoid certain things, you have a very solid path to victory.
Sure. Yeah.
If you come up against those, I think you might have a
worse.
non-game, unfortunately,
Yeah.
which is a problem. At the same time, I don't think any sisters list against specifically wins against court.
Yeah.
So if you are going with sisters, you might as well. And by that very virtue, when with it improving some of the difficult mech matchups, you might have the right idea as to like why to bring it.
Yeah, might help with the Grey Knight matchup.
Exactly. I think it's better into Iron Storm. I think it's a choice, but you must if your meta is full of Green Tide boys and full of Necrons, I think those two come to mind immediately. This list will struggle against those.
Sure.
So that would be the point. One more question, but the very last one. Is there any point to pick admech in teams? If you have a faction specialist, I think admech are very good.
Yeah. The only problem they have a little bit is they might score 100, but you don't necessarily always. You sometimes can just block your opponent and they can't do anything, and you actually get big wins. Sometimes they are. I got 100, but my opponent actually got 92 or something. So it actually ends up being like 11-point win or something. And then against certain factions, like a Necrons, who just go, the table's mine, you get pumped.
admech, I believe, are a perfect faction to not pick up, or like either two ways. You would pick up admech for your team if you are a faction specialist admech and you love that faction, and you will like surprise people with it because it's still going to happen. You would pick up admech because you would like to be quirky and fun, and that's kind of it. You wouldn't pick them up because they're super powerful.
No.
But you will win games, you will surprise people, and if you're a faction specialist with them, you will actually do, I believe, quite great. And time and time again, looking through events and lists, admech players are doing very well in those team events.
Yeah.
So take that as you will. All right. That is going to be it for that episode, going especially late today, because we will never fucking do an episode that's normal length. Thank you, everybody, for being with us. I'm sorry. I will skip the plugs because my cat is already going insane in my background, and I would like to get some sleep. So thank you again for everybody to sticking with that. Thank you, Typhus, for being here for the questions in spirit, if not in person. Thank you, Nathan, and see you in the next one, whenever that might be. Good night, everybody.
Good night, all.